Okay, so today we are going to dive into Chapter 2, as some of you might have imagined. Before I go much further, a couple of questions. First of all, has everybody been able to post their self-reflection from last week into the discussions? Were they able to find it and do it? Blank stares. Has anybody not been able to find it and do it? More blank stares. Okay, so essentially I know that at least 15 of you have done it, where you essentially take your post that you compiled last week and posted it. If you have not yet done that, or you are listening to me and thinking, what the heck is AJ saying, then come talk to me so I can get you sorted out. It needs to be done so that I can make sure that you posted and I can cross-verify on my end, okay? The other thing that's on my mind, has anybody not completed the course expectations quiz? Gonna get more blank stares, aren't I? Okay, so there's still a handful of you who haven't done it. I'll email those of you who haven't done it yet, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Most of you have done it, which is good. You can't see my slides on FOL if you haven't done it. So hopefully we'll get that all sorted out today, and we're going to get into some kind of normal moving forward. The first couple of weeks are always a little bit off. But in any case, let's get started. Let's dive in with a simple question. What do you remember from, well, actually, technically it's 2 weeks ago. So what do you remember from 2 weeks ago? Sooner you all give me a response, sooner we move forward, sooner class finishes. Start us off. Wellness is a mixture of things, you're right, and that's actually an excellent place to start. So there's three components that we discussed 2 weeks ago as to how we define wellness in this course. Does anybody remember what those components were? Or give me one of them. 3 pieces. Yeah, we'll start with Richard.
3 components, physical, psychological, and mental.
So you identified some dimensions of wellness. So there are 8 dimensions of wellness that we're going to be discussing. I was looking for the definition. I think I heard something over there.
A complex process of making choices towards optimal.
Excellent, thank you. So the 3 components that we discussed regarding the definition of wellness for this course are as follows. So wellness is a process. It is a complex process. It is a process composed of multiple different processes. So essentially, there are many different things that you are going to do, some relatively trivial and small, some of them may be much larger. Some of them may be relatively easy, like for example, boiling water so you can make a hard-boiled egg for lunch. And some may be a little bit more complex, like learning how to improving your skills so that you feel confident public speaking in front of a large group of 100 people. So 2 processes. One is much, much simpler, much, much easier than the other. Wellness is a collection of said processes that all come together. Good. Choices are the choices that we make in order to improve our well-being. Are they choices that we can make voluntarily, or is it okay that someone essentially coerces us or forces us into said choices? Does that fall into wellness as we know it in this course?
Well, it wouldn't be personal wellness because someone else is forcing you.
Yeah, it absolutely wouldn't, right? So the choices that you make in an attempt to try to improve your well-being, they must be not only voluntary, so you're making them on your own free will, nobody's forcing you into doing anything, but they also must be deliberate. So I gave a really terrible example 2 weeks ago about McDonald's, about if there was a McDonald's next door and then it went and left. It essentially means you consciously and knowingly made the decision. It didn't just sort of fall into your lap, so to say. So that's another important component we talked about. And then ultimately, the goal of wellness as a process is to achieve optimal being. Does anybody remember what being refers to, or what we talked about being as a couple weeks ago? Yeah, for sure. You wanted to add to that? Yeah.
What each individual experiences?
Yeah, exactly. So both of you are correct. So your being encompasses all of you. So not just your physical being or your mental being, mental self, physical self, but your spiritual self, all of your experiences, everything that encompasses you falls into your being. So that's something that we really want to keep in mind as we move forward in this course. We're going to be tapping into various beings, so to say, that are located within you. Nice. So yeah, definitely something we discussed last week. Anything else that rings a bell from last week? Richard kind of got us started a little bit on the second big piece. Yeah, the 8 dimensions of wellness. So we talked about how wellness as a whole, it's sort of a big, broad term, and then there's 8 strands or 8 dimensions that we can use that if we take actions and make choices to improve them, it's going to lead to improving our being in each of these 8 dimensions. So does anybody remember some of the dimensions that we discussed? You can just spit them out if you want. Financial, yeah, for sure. So that's something we'll talk about later in the course. What else? See if we can get them all. Social is one, yeah. Financial, social. Physical.
Psychological.
Not quite. Emotional. Spiritual. I gotta keep track of them. I think I've got the remaining 3. Environmental. Next 2 are the trickier ones. Occupational and starts with an I. Intellectual. Thank you. So those are the 8 dimensions of wellness. And the way this course is designed, it's not like every week we have a chapter on each of the dimensions because there's too much that we can discuss. We're going to be covering a topic that's going to touch on many of the different dimensions that are in this course. Fantastic. Those are the 2 big points from 2 weeks ago that we discussed. We also talked a little bit about history. We talked about related terms, but we didn't spend a heck of a lot of time on that. So let's move forward and dive into our next chapter. So we have a rough understanding of what wellness is. Now we're going to change gears and talk about meaning and purpose. Now you may be wondering, why is this a topic? Number one, why is this being brought into wellness? Some of you might be thinking that. Some of you might also be thinking, why are we talking about this so soon? It's a good question. Those are both good questions, and I'm hoping by the end of today you'll have a better understanding as to why that's taking place. So for our icebreaker, to get us warmed up, I have a question right here. Which person is more likely to experience a meaningful life? I'm not going to define what meaningful life means. I'll leave that to you, whatever you envision or think meaningful life means. So I have person A, and let's have a read. So lives in southwestern Ontario, has access to food, entertainment, social media, streaming, modern technology. Never experienced much severe hardship like war. They've never been in prison. They've never been hungry or famished. And they have the ability to order almost any product to their door, communicate instantly with others, and spend hours each day consuming content online or in person designed to keep them entertained. So I want you to think about that for a second and maybe close your eyes if you want to and picture who that person might be. If we're being honest with ourselves, some of you may close your eyes and picture yourself in that scenario. Some may not, but some might. Either way, this is person A. You ready for person B? Person B. So person B was born into a Jewish family in Germany during the rise of the Nazi rule. They had their basic freedoms, their safety, their dignity, and many of their loved ones taken away from them abruptly. They were imprisoned in concentration camps, including the infamous Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland. They endured starvation, violence, forced labor, fear, and they were dehumanized on a daily basis. Suffering and death were a regular occurrence for them on a day-to-day basis. And for many, many years, they ultimately did survive one of the darkest periods of our human history. The question goes to you. Which person do you think is more likely to experience a meaningful life? Do you think person A, person B, And I've given the I don't know option for those of you who are not sure or don't really know what they want to put. I think I also gave you the option to select more than one response if you're kind of teetering between two. Either way, let's see what comes up. So the winner, at least based on our early sample, it appears to be person B. So the individual who experienced severe hardship is more likely to experience a meaningful life. That's an interesting option here. And then we have a few that selected person A as well. So many of you may have caught where I'm going with this, but I'd like to introduce you to person B. Has anybody ever heard of Eddie Jaku or heard that name before? You have? Yeah. So Eddie Jaku has lived to 99. He is the individual that is described in person B. And he wrote a book called The Happiest Man on Earth. I don't know if you ever have heard that book before. It is an international bestseller. Fantastic read. Highly recommend taking a look at it if you haven't. So an individual such as him endured what, that was just a very brief summary of what he underwent. Yet he calls himself the happiest man on earth. So we're going to watch, hopefully this works for me, a brief video where Eddie's going to talk a little bit about what he experienced and how he got to where he is. 10 minutes of your time. Enjoy.
My dear new friends, my name is Eddie Jaku, and I'm standing in front of you today as a survivor of the Holocaust and a witness of the most tragic times in the history of mankind. I was a proud young German. I thought this was the best civilization that could be given to a young man like me. How wrong I was. On the 9th of November 1938, I returned from boarding school where I had lived under a false name for 5 years because I was a Jew. I lived away from my family like an orphan, getting an education and under enormous pressure and fear that somebody could find out that I was not Walter Schleif, who I pretended to be. I was in great danger. On that fateful night, I had arrived home, but my family had gone in hiding, and I was alone. I went to bed with my dog close by. At 5 a.m. on the 10th of November, 1938, 10 Nazis broke down the door of our house. And what they did to me, I am ashamed to tell you. It was so bad that I believed, Eddie, you're going to die today. After they made me witness the demolishing of our 200-year-old house and murdering my beloved dog Lulu, who had tried to protect me. In front of my eyes, I lost my dignity, my freedom, and my faith in humanity. I lost everything I lived for. I was reduced from a man to being nothing. What happened to my country where I was born in? The country of my ancestors, the country which produced Schiller, Goethe, Beethoven, and Mozart. What had happened to my German friends, who became murderers? At the time, none of us understood that Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, when the fronts of Jewish-owned shops were smashed and the shops looted, and homes and synagogues were set on fire, was only the beginning of the nightmare of much, much worse to come. That day, I was transported to my first concentration camp, Buchenwald, where I was kept with another 11,000 Jewish men for about 5 months. On the 2nd of May, 1939, I was released. My father picked me up and drove me to Aachen. After 10 hours driving, we made an arrangement with a smuggler to take us into Belgium. I spent 2 weeks there with my dad in an apartment until I was arrested by Belgian police as a German, not a Jew, and interned in a camp with 4,000 other Germans. On the 10th of May 1940, the camp was liquidated. We split up in Dunkirk, and I continued on to Lyon. There I was arrested by French police and sent to Gurs, a terrible camp with 6,000 Germans. After my internments and camps, I was finally transported to what became my hell on earth, Auschwitz. My parents and sister were also transported to Auschwitz, and I was never to see my parents again. I did not have a chance to say goodbye to my beloved mother, and I have missed her every day of my life. If you have the opportunity today, please go home and make sure you tell your mom how much you love her. Please do this for your new friend, Eddie. I was lucky enough, managed to escape what became known as the Death March, and I hid in a forest alone for many months before I was found by the American army. But I'm standing here today happy man, who enjoys life with a wonderful wife and a beautiful family. I do not hate anyone. Hate is a disease which may destroy your enemy, but will also destroy you in the process. I'm doing everything I can to make this world a better place for everyone. And I implore you all to do your best too. Let us ensure that this terrible tragedy, the worst in the history, may never happen again, and also will never ever be forgotten. After many years of hardship and hiding, on the 7th September 1945, after a long journey by train, I entered back into Belgium without any papers. Very shortly after that, I met and married my wife, Flor, to whom I have been married for 73 years. Thank you. At that time, I was not a happy man, and did not enjoy being amongst people. That was until our first son, Michael, was born. At that time, my heart was healed and my happiness returned in abundance. I made a promise that from that day until the end of my life, I promised to be happy, smile, be polite, helpful, and kind. I also promised to never put my foot on German soil again. Today I stand in front of you, a man who has kept all those promises. My greatest happiness comes from my family, my wife, 2 sons, Michael and Andre, my many grandchildren and great-grandchildren, who all bring so much joy. Today I teach and share happiness with everyone I meet. Happiness does not fall from the sky. It's in your hands. If you're healthy and happy, you're a millionaire. Happiness also brings good health to the body and mind, and I attribute to my 99 years of health mostly to the positive and happy attitude. One flower is my garden. One good friend is my world. Young people today forget to stop. They're constantly running and don't know where they're running to. You should take time to be happy and enjoy life. There is a time to laugh and there's a time to cry. I see good things in life. Invite a friend or family member for a meal. Go for a walk. Tomorrow will come. But first, enjoy today. I wonder how people exist without friendship, without people to share their secret, hopes and dreams, to share good fortune or sad losses. In the sweetness of friendship, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasure. Good times made better and bad times forgotten, due to the magic of friendship. For me, when I wake up, I'm happy because it is another day to enjoy. When I remember that I should have died a miserable death, but instead I'm alive, so I am aimed to help people who are down. I was at the bottom of the pit, so if I can make one miserable person smile, I'm happy. Thank you. Remember these words. Please do not walk in front of me. I may not be able to follow. Please do not walk behind me. I may not be able to lead. Just walk beside me and be my friend. I will end my talk with a wish from my heart to all your hearts. May you always have lots of love to share, lots of good health to spare, and lots of good friends that care. Thank you for giving me the privilege of speaking you today. Thank you.
There were probably a few things that Eddie shared in that talk that might have resonated with you a little bit, might have hit something. Did anybody hear anything or feel anything from that talk that got their attention, perhaps? Anything that was shared?
Go home and love your mom.
Go home, tell your mom you love her. Yeah, it cuts deep for sure, definitely. Any others? To me, the story about the dog, I think, is probably one of the saddest parts, and I figured someone from this group might identify with that. That always gets to me. Either way, Eddie's story, it's a pretty powerful example. So he is one individual who was subjected to unimaginable cruelty, suffering, loss, through absolutely no fault of his own. And throughout history, countless other people have experienced something similar to what Eddie experienced. Violence, oppression, illness, loss, injustice, again, at no fault of their own. Some of the other stories that come to mind, you think of, the children and the families affected by school shootings, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, or the recent events that happened in Tumbler Ridge in BC. You think about what happened, during Canada's residential schools system and the Indigenous families and children that have endured tremendous harm from that. You think of victims of genocides, not just the Holocaust, but the Rwandan genocide, the Armenian genocide. People diagnosed with terminal illness out of the blue despite living a relatively healthy and normal life. I can go on and on and on about awful things happening, yet if the pursuit of wellness depended entirely on comfort and circumstances, how is it that stories such as Eddie's and stories of other individuals who managed to get through such terrible hardships, how could that be possible? You would think that enduring something so awful, how the heck do you bounce back from that? What is it that ultimately keeps people going? Any thoughts? How's it possible? Yeah. Found fulfillment, for sure. Yep, you're getting to what I was thinking, for sure. Finding fulfillment in other ways, for sure. Any other thoughts or comments coming to mind? Eddie's life doesn't necessarily prove that immense suffering, is good. It just proves that maybe there's something more that we should be looking at and considering. Essentially, Eddie and other individuals found meaning, and that's what today's talk is going to be about. We're going to be looking at meaning and purpose. Oftentimes the two are looked at together, so we're going to have a closer look at what each of them mean, and then by the end of today's class, I'm hoping that you'll all be able to do a better job or have an easier time finding meaning and purpose in your lives, and how that connects to wellness. That's probably one of the biggest pieces here.